Have you ever been reading a celebrity pastor's blog post or listening to a famous Bible teacher and something jumps out to you and you're just like, how am I the only person seeing this thing? Why isn't anyone talking about it? Well, you're not alone. Welcome to Underdog Theology. This podcast is about looking at what's happening in evangelicalism. I'm talking tweets, I'm talking books, blogs, videos, all of it, and judging it according to Scripture. Whether that's reacting to celebrity pastors, teasing about the latest ridiculous battle in the culture war, or just having a little bit of fun together, this show is for all the folks who feel like they're on the outside looking in, who feel like they don't have a voice, who feel like they're an underdog. Welcome to Underdog Theology.
In this world, that's what I want to know. Sometimes I come on here and it's just like, we got this and this and this to talk about. I want to be reasonable. No volume, bro. Is that? Oh, what the? Why did that do that?
Well, thanks for that. I appreciate that, Aaron. I don't know what happened. Was that? It said my MacBook. Now it's working, right? The music is still playing. Yes, the music is supposed to still be playing, but it's supposed to also have my microphone. No mic, music is playing. I hate this delay because I'm always just like, I fixed it, right? It should be fixed. You know what? We're just gonna act like that didn't happen. You know, I don't know. I've been doing this show that's good now. All right, sweet. Thanks, guys. I've been doing this show for 3 years, and I still have no idea what I'm doing. All right, like I know I kind of like joke about other streamers and like, oh, they need to work on this and this. I have no idea what I'm doing. But you know what? Neither does anyone else in the Christian world. That's where I was going with that opening that you guys didn't hear. What's going on in this world of evangelicalism? Because every time I look around, it's like Mr. Incredible, you know? Not that I'm incredible, although I'm not saying I'm not. All right, but it's like in like in The Incredibles, Mr. Incredible is like, you know, you just saved the world. You know, can we leave it saved for just a minute? I don't feel like I've saved evangelicalism, but I feel like I've said my piece about certain things, and then like I go away and it's just like it's the same stuff. The same stuff keeps on happening. It's like, can't we just like, everybody said we didn't want this, you know, like the entirety of the internet said no thanks to this thing, or we canceled that person because they were doing all kinds of stuff. And then it's just like, nope, they just get to come back now because you turned around for too long and you thought like we were done with that. And that person's like, I'm going to scratch and claw until I have a platform. Or I'm going to scratch and claw till we're not talking about abuse anymore. Or I'm going to scratch and claw until I can make some money and, get my name out there, my brand out there and sell new products and have merch. And it's just, why does this keep on happening? Christians, are we this foolish? Like, I mean that title today because there's just stuff going on that people are just like not paying attention to. They don't care. It's insane. All right. Let's start off with what's going on this week. All right. We've got the SBC annual meeting that literally just kicked off. I haven't checked out the stream yet, but I'm assuming they're starting off with a 2-hour worship service to the United States of America because that's usually what they do. Oh, snap! Shots fired right off the bat. You know, you thought we weren't talking about Trump today, but hey. Here we go. No, I'm just kidding. But it's just every year they do that, and it's like this big patriotic thing. It's like, why are you guys doing this? Like this is supposed to be about meeting about churches, and you guys are like, I'm proud to be an American. You know, it's like, come on, America. That's why. But they're meeting in Indianapolis. You know me. I got to start with the logo. Pretty cool logo this time. I got to admit. I like the flat design. I like the colors. I wish the lines. I wish the lines were a little bit bigger over here. You know, right here, this line should be quite a bit bigger. I get why you don't have them bigger in between. You're trying to get like the perfect spacing between, but just make it bigger. You know, big fat lines. That's what's good in design. But anyways, let's talk about what they're actually doing. So they're meeting this week to talk about, you know, who's going to be the new president because, you know, Bart Barber is done with his two, what do they call them? Office rotations. I don't know. I'm forgetting words because I'm live and I'm getting nervous because I started with the logo critique. Yeah, so he's been SBC president for a bit now, so he's done. So they're going to elect a new guy, and there's a bunch of guys to pick from, and they're all the same except for a couple. Like, this is always the thing with the SBC. It's like, which white guy are we going to get? Oh man, shots fired. We're going full in today, guys. If you wanted underdog theology, you're getting underdog theology today. Which white guy are we going to pick? That's basically what it is. And there are a couple white guys that don't like abuse reform. They don't want reform to happen. And they're using the scapegoat of, you know, this women pastors issue. Now, again, I'm very conservative. I'm far more conservative than people like to think. I know, like, there are some of my critics who would like to just like write me off as a liberal. Easy to do, but also just like not accurate. I'm actually very conservative. I do believe that only men should be qualified elders, or only qualified men should be elders within a local church. So that isn't really the issue. But what's happening right now is a witch hunt in the SBC to try to find women who are in these roles that, you know, are vague about what the office of pastor is. So, like, there are churches that, while they would still be what they would categorize as complementarian, I don't identify as a complementarian. Because I think that there's more attached to that than just that issue that I said where I stand. I think that there's more going on there. So they're trying to go at people and trying to find, you know, these people who are on the verge of that. And so while these churches might identify as complementarian, and they do because they're in the SBC, and you have to, like, that's part of the thing. But they're trying to find the people that don't fit into that so they can kick them out. And we saw that last year with Rick Warren and everything that happened with Al Mohler and Rick Warren's awkward exchange on the annual meeting floor. And, you know, they kicked him out. And he tried to appeal. They said no. And there were a couple other churches like that. Now, there are a few of these churches that don't fit into the SBC theological angle of where you're coming out with that complementarian issue. So those churches don't belong in the Southern Baptist Convention. They don't, because if you deny that, it opens up all different kinds of issues and how you're going to interpret different passages. And so you probably don't belong in that, like, really close combined effort for the Great Commission. Like, it's going to be hard to get along. You're going to come up with all different kinds of issues. You're not going to see things the same. Doesn't mean that they're not brothers and sisters in Christ. Doesn't mean that you have to write them off in their entire ministries. But it does mean that probably you're going to disagree about a lot of things that churches don't need to have these arguments about. They should be focused on the Great Commission instead. And you can leave those kinds of arguments between friends, between, you know, just being Christians, right? Like we have these debates, me and Jer's in the comment section. Me and Jared can debate and have fun about baptism, and we can both affirm that each other, like we're both Christians, and we're still, you know, like no one's a false teacher in this conversation. But that's what they're doing. All right, they're looking for those churches, and while there have been a few that have been kicked out, there are far more that are like in this gray area where you have like youth pastors and they're women. And while I actually don't have any problem with a woman leading like a youth group, like biblically, you don't have youth groups. So we're all kind of winging it at this point, right? Like, but if you want to call them a youth pastor, that's where these guys are coming from. There's a couple different candidates that are really focused on that issue. And there's an amendment that's being, tried to be pushed through the Southern Baptist Convention called the Law Amendment. It's by a pastor, Mike Law, I think. But he came up with an amendment to basically really go at people, like to really go at churches that don't fit into their Baptist faith and message. I'm realizing that there's another me. Why is there another me? Oh, that's scary. What if there was two me's? The world wouldn't be able to handle it, But that's what that law amendment is about, and they're going to be voting on that probably tomorrow. There's going to be people pushing it through, and then they'll run out of time and they'll push it to the next day. That's how these things work. Anything that's important gets pushed through on the last day when everyone's tired and worn out. And everyone's hungry. And that's always something that's going to be brought up. Or the air conditioning, apparently. That's a thing. So that's what's going on in the Southern Baptist Convention. At the same time, like that's what's being talked about right now, is this issue of female pastors, and that there are churches that are in that gray area of calling people who aren't being like the preaching pastor, who aren't being like even like discipleship pastors or things like that. They don't have like ruling authority like an elder should. Not full authority, but some authority. Like they're not fitting into those gray areas, but they're not going into those black and white areas. They're fitting into this gray area, and so they're going to be going at those people. But that's what's being talked about. That's the main thing right now, and that sucks because, like I said, it's a witch hunt. All of this is just a witch hunt and a distraction of what. Oh man, I got alerts on my computer being like, you're using too much space. I don't know. Everything's looking fine to you guys, right? I don't know what that's about. But it's all a distraction because the real issue is abuse. All these candidates, they're going to get up there and they're going to be like, oh, we're going to be about the Great Commission, or they're going to be like, actually, we're about false teaching and we need to get it out of here. And so we're going to go at that. That's what's going to be talked about. But the real issue is the issue of abuse. That's what's the problem in the Southern Baptist Convention. They don't have a female pastor problem. All right. There might be, like, again, because there's 48,000 of these churches, like there might be like random occurrences, 48,000. You might have like 2 or 3 of these female pastors. But like, it's just not the main issue. Like you compare that stats wise with what's happening with the issue of abuse within the Southern Baptist Convention and covering up issues of abuse at institutions. Al Mohler wants to get on his podcast and talk all day about, the minimum wage in California and Donald Trump and stuff like that. But, and talk about hush money there. But there's been hush money at Southern Baptist Theological Seminary. There's been hush money all throughout high levels of the SBC. And that's the main issue. But they're not going to deal with that. This is how I go, like, what is going on with Christians? Why are Christians being so foolish? Because they can't see what's going on. Like, there are people who have this ability to manipulate others in a really significant way. Like they're going to go through. I've seen this happen. I've talked about this a few times. I've known an abuser in a church who used the issue of a furnace and replacing that furnace to take control of the church and to get them to not focus on issues like abuse. And then later, oh, shocking, shocking. He was an abuser himself. Oh, shocking. It's just like, no, that's how these manipulators work. They get you focused on something that doesn't really matter. It's a boogeyman. Like the issue of these female pastors. Like that's an issue that's been decided for a long time. And so they're using that issue to be like, look over here, because they don't want a huge entity like the Southern Baptist Convention and the executive committee to be able to influence how their local church runs things. And you can be guaranteed that there are abusers in that midst. I'm not saying every single one of them are. I'm saying just stats wise and just my experience, there are people who are pushing that movement of it's about church autonomy to really say, like, don't look into my past, like don't be asking any questions. That girl is a liar, like that's the kind of stuff that's happening right now. And it's just ridiculous to me that so many Christians are naive enough to think like, oh, this is the issue. And they get real passionate about that issue. And they think this is what we need to be voting on because we don't want to be, swept up into false teaching. And this is just the gateway for liberals to get in control of the Southern Baptist Convention and all that kind of stuff. And that's just not the truth. The truth is that there's an abuse problem. And the truth is that nothing is going to be done about it this week. Nothing. I mean, you could see it. Look around on Twitter to those women who are brave enough to come forward, and a few men too, brave enough to come forward and say that they survived this issue of abuse and people in positions of power knew about it. And look how they're treated by the Southern Baptist Convention. And look at what they're saying now. They're saying, like, I don't think anything's going to be done about it, even though some of them were, there at these votes, crying at the front because finally the Southern Baptist Convention was going to do something about it. Well, I do think that actually as a convention, the Southern Baptists would love to do something about it. I think if you asked the average pastor in the Southern Baptist Convention, they would say, yeah, of course, abuse is wrong. Abuse is wrong. We don't want it happening. It would be great to have resources to be able to have people look into things in our local church, not have to pay for it just on our own, but be part of this cooperative effort for the gospel's sake and making sure that, people aren't getting hurt and that when it's known about that we're sharing that information. I think if you ask the average local church pastor, they would be all for that. But that's not who makes decisions in an organization like this. Like, again, it's all like, it might sound conspiracy, but this is how stuff happens. It matters who's on the executive committee. That's what matters. It matters what's happening behind closed doors. It matters about the donors. It matters about who's withholding their money from the cooperative program in order. That's like basically like the finances that runs pretty much everything in the Southern Baptist Convention. So who's withholding their cooperative funds because they didn't have this person put in power, or they're holding it until someone gets into this office. That's what the real power is. And a lot of Christians are just so naive and just ignorant of what's happening around them that they just don't see it. And they get swept up in the rhetoric of, oh, we don't want to go back to, where the denomination was. And it is a denomination. Like 30 years ago, 40 years ago, I guess, when Al Mohler first got into power at the Southern Baptist Convention or Southern Baptist Theological Seminary, like when he first became president, there was an issue about female pastors. And there was a problem of where is this convention going to go? Are they going to affirm female pastors, or are they going to withhold that office just for qualified men? And that was an issue at the time. It's no longer an issue. Those churches left. Those churches were, upset and they left. And maybe there's a few churches here and there, but it's not a prevalent problem within the SBC, abuses. And they're going to use this little thing and be like, look over here. Meanwhile, they're not doing anything, and they're distracting people, and they're tiring out people. So you're going to see that this week. I would be shocked if any real movement happened about abuse. And you will hear stuff. They're like, because this past year, like they had a task force to go. You remember the guidepost or guidestone? I always forget. There's two different ones that are like guide something, and I always get the wrong one, but they had, I think it was Guidepost Solutions. They had them go and figure out what was going on with this abuse issue and do research and do this investigation, and then they came out with the task force. Well, the task force didn't really get anything done. I mean, they tried, but again, you're pushing a rock uphill, and there are other people on the other side of that rock who are pushing it downhill, and it's very hard to get anything done in an organization like that. So I think that they tried, didn't really get anything done, and they decided, let's go around this. Let's try to get around this rock, and let's say, like, let's start a third party thing, outside of the Southern Baptist Convention. Let's start this new organization to handle abuse and kind of oversee what's happening. You are going to hear debates on the floor at the Southern Baptist annual meeting about how that goes against the anatomy of the local church, and that why are Southern Baptists funding an organization that isn't Southern Baptist. You're going to hear that because these people, they wanted to solve things, but they knew that they weren't going to be able to. And so now they're just going to kind of be like, let's start this thing, and it's going to get killed. Like, that thing is just going to get demolished by some of these guys because there actually is good reason for it. Like, there are good reasons to not fund something that doesn't align with your theological vision. Like, so they really messed up with that one. And I understand why they made that decision, but it wasn't a good decision. And so abuse is just not going to be taken care of within the SBC. And I would be actually even surprised if it really gets brought up in a progressive way, as in like moving it forward. Like, I don't think that's probably going to happen at all. I don't think there are going to be any conversations like that. It's just going to be like, let's destroy this organization that they started. Why? They're going to question it. Who gave you the authority to start this thing? And those are actually good questions to ask. And the task force really messed up when they decided to try to do that. So, or what? It's not the task force. It's whatever they started. But the committee, another committee, they have a committee on committees, which is, that's how things are done in the SBC. But let's hear about what you guys are thinking and say hi to some people who are in the chat. And then we'll start getting into some other stuff. We got to deal with Carl Lentz. We're going to deal with the Ogden patriarchy boys. The boys. Hi, Pam. Hi, fellow kids. RJ says, the thing that confuses me about this is most of their missionaries are female and are pastoring and teaching. Yeah, but that's okay, because those people are halfway around the world and we got to get the gospel out somehow. So now we could use women. that's what some of them will say. Jason Nickel, what's up, dude? The early church didn't have youth groups because males were considered to be men at 12 and girls were married off at 12. Debate about the age of that. That's a little young, usually like 15, 16. But the men, yes, you were right to work, no school, right to work. And yeah, you didn't have youth groups in that same way. Johnny says, I mean, wouldn't teenagers technically be children and not men? Therefore, even strict complementarians would allow women to teach. I think so. I will tell you one thing. Like, young teenage boys, like, that would be a problem. It just would, of depending on how old this woman was. Kids are stupid. All right, that's what I'll say. Pam says, I'm supervising high school. We just returned from our walkathon of about 7K, and I'm beat. I bet you are. That's a long ways. Jeremy, what's up? Presbyterians probably are used to it, the way with important issues at the end, but now we change that around. Yeah, it's stupid. They do like, all right, let's give some time on the floor for some new motions, and then they basically get into reports, and then the day is over, and then they do the votes, and all the focus becomes like the issue of who's going to be the president. And I'm just telling you, the president does have power in the Southern Baptist Convention, but not that much. Like, the real power is who's going to be CEO, who's going to be like the head guy of the executive committee. Those are the real positions of power. But it's just, I don't know. People just don't think about it that way. But yeah, like, but that's also to the It's a tactic. It's a tactic from a lot of people who would love to not deal with real issues, to be like, oh yeah, well, I move that we move this conversation till this time and whatever. Also, maybe just like not sing a couple more songs. You do it at church. Like, it's not a worship service. Like, you're here to get business done, and business can glorify God too. So maybe just chill out a little bit about having to sing that song and have, like, those specials done, and maybe deal with the issue of abuse if it takes too long. Pam says, if it looks like a duck, acts like a duck, and sounds like a duck, shouldn't we call it a goose so we don't offend anyone? That's great. What's up, John? I don't know what the title of this episode is about, but the answer is yes. Are Christians as foolish? Yes, some of them are. Let's go down a little bit. What's up, Wendy? I rather think they should focus on qualified men and not laying hands on premature men to the rather sparse female pastors. Yeah. If we're gonna talk about like the qualifications of a pastor, let's talk about all of them, right? Not just the anatomy of that pastor. Let's talk about all the qualifications and take the Bible seriously when it talks about those qualifications. But that's not as fun. That's right. Yep, that's right. That's right. I'm sure Dylan would be happy about that. No, he would not. He wants you to use their voice. It's about states' rights. That's the same thing. Yeah, 100%. What's up, Kip? Heidi says, I'm questioning if pastors, elders are supposed to have ruling power. I think that is a phrase that gives them a false sense of their purpose, which is more a caregiver role. I mean, it all depends on how you think the church should be run. I've always said that the church should be elder-led, congregationally ruled, and deacon-served. But that doesn't mean like the congregation shouldn't be serving the pastors and the deacons, and the pastors shouldn't be serving the congregation. But yeah, I do think that there's vision. There should be vision from the elders on where this congregation should be going, but the congregation should have full power to hold their pastors accountable, to their leaders accountable, and in an elder-led way, which my Presbyterian friends would not necessarily agree about where I stand on it. But I mean, that's why I'm not Presbyterian. I mean, the issue of baptism is a huge part of it, but also just like there's not really a full way for the congregation to hold their pastor accountable. But Baptists, we, at least on paper, most of the time we get that part right. Now, whether that's actually implemented, I don't know. Let's see. Merca, the Christian way, or something like that. At least that's what a lot of people think. Maybe. Paul says, it's wild to me that things like the Nicene Creed and abuse reform are supposed to take back seat to female pastors. I'm all for the law amendment, but come on. Our culture wars now are our number one priority? Apparently. Let's see. Johnny says, doesn't matter if you think only qualified men can be pastors or not. We can all agree that those men aren't qualified. Agreed. Not only SBC, but a lot of non-denom as well. Dean, everything you talk about the Ogden people, I don't want it to go back, which I don't want to go back, which I don't anyway. Okay. Didn't the current president sign the amicus brief? Yeah, but he didn't know. About it. That's what he said. I don't know him. I will say, there are lots of people who love Bart Barber. I am not one of those people. Like, just as a Christian, sure. I'm all for Christians being Christians, but also just like, I'm not a fan of like his odd sarcasm. And, there's like things that he says online that I'm just like, you didn't need to be that aggressive, first off. And then also, like, what are you even saying? So I don't know. All right, let's start talking about something else that everybody loves. Everybody loves to talk about. And that's Carl Lentz. What's going on? All right. Why are Christians okay with this? All right. Why can't they see what is happening? Last week, Carl Lentz returned. I know somehow the emperor has returned. No, I'm just kidding. But he came back, and you might be like, how is that possible? How is that possible? Carl Lentz was everywhere, right? He was giving people false names, having affairs. There was all like the celebrity culture of it. There's a whole documentary that was made about Hillsong and specifically him and his involvement. And, he's done all kinds of terrible things. And now he's back. He's back with a podcast because that's how people come back these days. They come back with podcasts. And so he started a podcast with his wife last week. It's in connection with Mike Todd because I think he's on staff at Mike Todd's church as like a consultant. I don't know if you want someone who was in a documentary for not pastoring well and not meeting the qualifications to be a consultant. But, whatever. I guess that's fine. So, because technically he's not a pastor. He's not called pastor, so it's okay. It's okay. Maybe they need a law amendment. I don't know. But so he's back. He's doing stuff. He's going and having this podcast. It's with like the brand of Mike Todd and that basement guy. All right, real talk. I started Basement Theology. All right, that guy stole my idea. He's not even in a real basement. I'm in a basement. This is a basement. We talk about theology in this basement. Basement theology? What are you talking about? You're in Martha Stewart's house. There's no basement in Martha Stewart's house. Okay. But he did Tim Ross. That's all of that was so that I could get to the name. What's that guy's name again? So Tim Ross has like that YouTube channel, Basement Theology, and it's bad. It's not bad. It's not good. You shouldn't listen to it. He's the guy who went up and was like, stripper Jesus. You guys remember that? Dollar bills. He put that bread in your pocket. Oh man, John Adams has a lot of fun with that song. But yeah, so that happened. And so he's starting this podcast and he's talking about his failures. Here's the deal. Like when it first started, I was like, I can see where this could go wrong. And is this a step toward him getting back into ministry? And I wanted to fight that. I know how like people who would view my channel would think I am, but I really do like giving people a second chance. All right. Like I think if someone has failed and they're apologetic and they like, they make amends for what they did, I think that they should be given that second chance. Now, it doesn't mean back into ministry. Doesn't mean given that same authority that they had before, but it doesn't mean you keep on making videos about them, right? Like it's just like, okay, if you're sorry, you're sorry. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone fails. We're all sinners. But as long as you're repentant of that and you work toward making amends with those who you've wronged, like I'm all for that. And so like I first started thinking about this podcast as like, well, there's a danger there because it wasn't just that he had affairs. Like it's that he was wrapped up in this celebrity culture. Like it became very apparent. It became very apparent to me. Again, I could be wrong, but this is just my perspective of it. I think it's kind of obvious that he's addicted to fame, right? Like he's addicted to his own name and getting his name out there. Like it doesn't seem wise for me. Like it doesn't seem wise to have someone who's addicted to fame start a podcast after he failed so like just epically because of that addiction to fame. Like that doesn't seem like a smart move, a wise decision. But again, I'm not that guy, right? Like so he's not, on like, or at least he's not a pastor. He's not claiming to be a pastor. But then I started listening to the podcast. And granted, I haven't listened to all of it because I don't want to, and I don't think I need to. So, but I did listen to quite a bit of it, and I was surprised at how preachy he got. And he was really like trying to be like, guys, I've been there. I've been through living with the guilt, and like I've been broken, and like, but he's like really angling at like lecture. Like I was expecting this to be more of a conversation with him and his wife, but his wife was essentially just putting everything on a tee for him to hit it out of the park. Like they've worked on it. That's obvious. They know exactly what each are going to say and what they want to discuss. And it just became very apparent to me that this is a teaching platform for him. And I have a lot of real concerns about that. But then there was this. All right, let's take a look at this is from ABC News.
Behind closed doors, Carl Lentz was spiraling.
Drugs?
Yeah.
Alcohol?
No, never had a drinking issue. I was prescribed a drug to help with ADHD that I used most of my adult life. And towards the end of my time in New York, I started to abuse it really badly.
How many affairs were there?
I'm definitely not going to get into numbers. I feel like it was more than one, and more that I got, caught for. But Laura's been through too much. My kids have been through too much, and I don't feel like it helps anything. But it definitely was not an isolated incident.
Are you a sex addict?
I'm a guy that was involved in infidelity.
My bad. Should have said if you got kids, there's going to be words that you probably don't want them to hear, but it's not graphic, but I'm just saying, discretion.
I definitely have addiction issues almost across the board. Sex addiction is never about sex. It's about trauma, and it's about what trauma produces, and sometimes it manifests itself in a sexual situation.
In November 2020, Hillsong informing staff and members they'd fired Carl after learning the extent of his indiscretions, citing several reasons including moral failures. Lynch writing online he was unfaithful in my marriage.
When did Laura find out? How did she find out?
2 of my staff members came to get me to talk to me about what they wanted to talk to me about, which was we found some things and we want to ask you about it. I need to tell Laura. Drove over to the church office and sat there and told her the truth, which still wasn't the whole truth. And
all right, I'm just letting you have a picture of how he's framing things. I'm not the apology police. This is one of those times where like I want to get to a place, but I know I need to address some things with this. Like, there's not a perfect way to say you're sorry for something like this. You're going to fumble. There are going to be mistakes that you make. But as I'm listening to this thing, it really is like, well, I'm broken. I was broken, man, and I'm not that same person. I've been through all this stuff. It's been 3 years. All right. It's been 3 years. Now, the biggest thing that I want to point to is, one, he still hasn't told the full story. And it's not necessarily that he owes the public that knowledge, but I think if you're going to go and have a public platform again, they should probably know like how far he went. I'm just saying, like, I think that would be part of it. But the biggest thing is that he's doing anything with ABC News. All right, this guy has been quiet, and I know that there's NDA stuff. Like, I know how it goes with a church when something like this happens. At this size, usually there's an NDA. So I don't know if there was like a time frame of where he could talk. But isn't it just so convenient that he is going on ABC News to have this big interview, and he's on Good Morning America, and he's all over the place for this interview the same week that he's starting a podcast? Like, this, again, are Christians this foolish? This is marketing. This right here is saving face, is trying to earn back people's trust so they go check out his podcast. If he didn't have a podcast starting, I don't think he would be here. Like, this is what happens. These Christians, they get swept up in a sob story. And then they give people authority that they don't deserve. Carl Lentz doesn't deserve any authority when it comes to a local church and just in the lives of other Christians. He shouldn't. He shouldn't have that authority. People should not trust this guy. All right. You have to be above reproach in order to be trusted, to be given a teaching position. But this brings me to like why are Christians so ready to just like accept somebody, accept them back? Like, it's not into fellowship. Fellowship is a different thing. Like just being friends with, and being like able to like live life. Like that's all there. But now you want to have an authority position once again as a podcast host. And again, this is not just conversations about how I've struggled and how we've been able to work on our marriage and get our life figured out. That's, at least from my perspective, not what this podcast is. This podcast is him lecturing. It's him teaching. All right. He's not busting out a Bible. He's not wearing a suit and getting to a pulpit, but this is his pulpit. And this gets me concerned for Christians about how we're going to treat some of these social media influencers. Like, it is one thing to go and have an Instagram account and share some videos, some thoughts, like everyone can do that. Everyone can start a YouTube channel where you get into your basement, a real basement, Tim Ross, and talk about theology and like do whatever. Like, you could do that. But someone who has failed in this way, again, I think an addiction to fame is there, so that's a problem. But also, if you're going to get on a podcast, you should not be lecturing, because it sounds just like his sermons. Like he's just preaching on this podcast. Does anyone care? Like, and again, what's the difference between him doing this podcast and pastoring at Hillsong? Not a lot. Less meetings, less accountability. Right? Like, he could get onto this podcast and do whatever he wants because he owns the thing. And I'm sure there's like, when it gets to like this level of starting something, there's always like, some like you could be guaranteed that the people like Mike Todd and Tim Ross and those guys, whatever company they've started for this, that they kind of own some part of this thing. But there's not accountability like a local church would have. And he's doing the same thing. It's just preaching, just a different avenue with a cooler background, to be honest. Like, I actually dug the background quite a bit. But like, that's what he's doing, but it's a podcast. It's like, and he goes into it. All right, let's listen to what he has to say about coming back.
It's been said a few times, the comeback. When are you coming back? Or when are you come back, Carl? Like, I want to be there with you when you come back. Like, what do you feel about that? How do you feel about that?
I appreciate it. I totally understand it, because it's a word used and it's a thing. What we think is there's no comeback, because the person that I was is no longer here. Mm-hmm. Just not here. That version of me died.
Right.
And what has...
Let's be clear. This was 3 years ago. All right. This internet age has just like, everyone goes through things so much faster now, and it's expected that you're just over things faster, or you've gone through things faster. That's not how life works. 3 years is not enough for something like this. All right. I don't know what the time frame is before you can really go public and start talking about these things and acting like you're an expert on, going through something like this. But I don't think it's 3 years. Like, this is just a couple of years ago. All right. Like, let's not act like he's been faithful to his wife for 20 years after this. And he can look back and say like, man, I really messed up in those ways, but I learned from that and I am a different person. This was 3 years ago.
Developed is a new person, a new life, a new lease on life, a new mentality, a new way to think. So I wouldn't say I'm coming back, because there's nothing to come back to. The chapter closed. To go back to that would mean I'm going backwards, literally. I don't want to come back to that life. I don't want to go back to that church circle. I don't want to go back to that way of thinking. I don't want to go back to any of it. I feel like for us, it's a new chapter. If anything, it's a rebirth. I mean, we started our second marriage. Mm-hmm. There are other things that we've decided to look at like that. We're in the second half of life. And so, no, if people are like, are you coming back? No, I'm not coming back. Because, as a preaching church, we're doing a podcast to talk about things that were painful for us, in the hopes that other people won't have to go through the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's a rebirth into that. That's it. relax. There's no comeback. There's nothing to come back to.
Do
It's a
you
new
miss
start.
preaching?
Yeah, I miss parts of it. And yes, easy answer is yeah, I miss preaching because I like what we're able to do. I know also what I'm created to do. I know what I'm good at. I'm a good preacher.
Yeah.
God gifted me to be able to communicate things in a way that a lot of people resonate with. So that's a part of it that I miss, but I'm really content in the season.
And do you like what you're doing?
So that's what he's saying. He's saying it's not a comeback. So don't think of it that way. I'm not in ministry. I'm just starting a podcast. And this is something that I really want to just dive into because I don't actually have an answer on this. All right, but this is something I've been wrestling with. Some of you guys know this. Like, again, I think that everyone should have their ability to speak their voice and say what they think about whatever issues. And that's the beauty of the internet, is that this thing is an equal opportunity employer. Like, anyone can start a social media account. Anyone could start a YouTube channel. Anyone could start a podcast. And, you know, if you do well in it, if you work hard, if you have something unique to say, a different perspective, there's an opportunity for you to grow that platform. And that's really cool. Like, I think that should be like celebrated. But when it comes to Christian theology, when it comes to even Christian living, I feel like we should have something. Like, this isn't pastoral ministry, but it's dang close, right? Like the idea of getting on a podcast and teaching. And like, I think, like, I did a stream a couple weeks ago. One, I stand by everything I said in that stream to all the huge accounts that came at me. But also, like, I'm pretty disappointed with the Christian YouTube space. I was clear in that video. I'll say it again now. I think most of Christian YouTube is trash. It's entertainment. And those people that are trying to do some things on there, some of them should not be able to have the authority that they do in people's lives. But they do have it. And they're not qualified for it. Like, when it comes to understanding their theology, they haven't gone to seminary. A lot of people here on Christian YouTube haven't gone to seminary. A lot of people who have huge Christian followings on different accounts, they haven't gone to seminary. They haven't been in pastoral ministry, or maybe they haven't been in it for long. Like, they should not have the authority that they do in Christians' lives. And that has me going, like, this is like that on steroids. Like, this guy is not qualified for pastoral ministry. Everybody knows that. But he could start a podcast and have the same kind of authority and be able to lecture instead of preach, and everyone's fine with it. I think that we need, as like just Christians who exist online, I think that we need to be much more careful about the kind of people that we're listening to and the kind of people that we're allowing to have platforms. Like, again, because in the internet age, there are no gatekeepers. The YouTube algorithm doesn't care about Carl Lentz and his past. Actually, they probably celebrate it, right? Like, because if you put Carl Lentz in a title, which they do, I mean, this is why, like, this is their own podcast. But look, Carl and Laura Lentz talk Hillsong. Why did they put their own names? Should I do that with my videos? Dean Lentini talks about Carl Lentz, right? Like, nobody cares about me, but they care about Carl Lentz, and Carl knows it. And so he puts it in the title, or whoever works for him puts it in the title. So, like, the algorithm cares about him in a way that they're going to push whatever he does because he's searchable. And I feel like the gatekeepers aren't there. We've talked about this with the Gospel Coalition. We've talked about this with Mark Driscoll and how no one seemed to really gatekeep on Mark Driscoll. And now Mark Driscoll, it's an uncontrollable bushfire, right? Like, it's just, he's everywhere now, and there's no stopping it because gatekeepers didn't do what they were supposed to do. And in this internet age, we are the gatekeepers. And if we're not going to hold people who have platforms to, I mean, like, this isn't even about, like, you have to be qualified as a pastor, like, completely. But I mean, like, all of us would have problems with this guy, right? Like, anyone here, at least, I think we have huge problems with the morality of this man. And I know it's been a couple years, and I'm glad he went to therapy, and I'm glad he went to rehab and done all the work. I'm not saying that he hasn't done those things, but I'm saying there should be time, and there should be, like, a testing period that isn't, like, 2 to 3 years. I'm talking about, like, decades before someone is given, like, this kind of authority in a Christian's life. But we got to do something as Christians online to stop this foolishness and stop pretending like Carl is just trying to start a podcast. He doesn't have to. He doesn't have to start a podcast. He could write a book. He could write a book, and that book would sell. But why does he want a podcast? I think it's probably to gain a platform, to get his side of the story out there, which it can't be great. It's such a bad situation that even if you go, like, sure, we don't know all the facts, we don't know what led up to it, we don't know everything about this story, but the rest of the story can't make any of the other parts of the story, like, good. Like, so, like, what are Christians doing? I've seen people, even here on YouTube, go like, oh, this, like, he's not going for a pastorate, guys, so calm down. He should be allowed to be like not a prosperity preacher, but when you talk about, like, positive reinforcement all the time, and you're just going around, I don't know, whatever, but you just going around and being public speaker, it's fine for him to do that. No, it isn't, because we're in this age where we're just at the pioneering years of the internet and how Christians are going to act with the internet. And I think so many people have gotten, like, internet church, like, live stream church. They said things this, like, last 5 years that they're going to regret in 30. All right. They're going to change their minds about it in 30 years, because just the way that the world works with everyone going online, it's going to become more and more of a problem that people like this have footholds, and we're given authority in people's lives that they should never have had and wouldn't have in a physical way. Like, if they're at a physical church, like, they wouldn't be able to have that kind of authority, but because it's online, nobody cares. And I'm just here saying, like, Christians, wake up. Like, the guy went on ABC News so that he could get his podcast out there. Also, all right, who needs this podcast? All right, he's talking about, like, I'm here for people who were in my situation. That's what a local church is for. Like, this idea of, like, oh, if you feel guilt and shame, like this is the podcast for you. One, like, if you're living that kind of life and you're a pastor, your elders should find out about it. Like this, like, your elders should hold you accountable. Your church should hold you accountable. And, like, it's just, there can't be that many people, is what I'm trying to say. Like, everyone has sin problems and everyone has stuff that they hide, whatever. But that's stuff that gets wrapped up in a church, like, that's stuff that gets resolved in a church. So for him to be like, this is the podcast for you, it's like, you're the only one who wanted this. Like, you were the one who's doing, he's trying to act like this is, like, a far bigger problem than it is, of, like, the level of deception that was going on in his life. And it's just, no, it's not that, but I mean, like, it happens, but, like, all that stuff should be dealt with by a local church, and it's not going to be dealt with because somebody listened to a podcast. But he got 100,000 views on this one. Look at that. It's only been 4 days, 100K. So impressive. All right. Let's see what you guys are saying. Did I go too strong, Anna? No, I never know. Matthias says he cannot drop the bone. Seems like it. Yep, 100%. Matthew says he stepped down after publicly admitting his wrong and left ministry for years. It was a pastoral search committee that approached him. He was talking about his own church. Okay. Let's say, Shanna Lee, what's up? Dang, now Tony Evans is saying he is stepping away from ministry due to sin. Saw that this morning. If you don't know who Tony Evans is, huge following. He's been a pastor for years. I think he actually is Wasn't he even like SBC president? Like I think he's in the SBC, and something in the back of my head, or was that Fred Luther? I don't know. I think he might have even been SBC president at one point. But he is stepping away from ministry for sin from the past, and he said it wasn't like a crime. So I don't know. There's stuff apparently. But I guess we'll find out about that soon. Claymore, people take advantage of forgiving people. Yeah. And again, I'm not saying like don't forgive people. I'm all for forgiveness, but forgiveness does not mean restoring people to have authority in someone's life. And they talked about like restoration to ministry, and that's not something that he wants. But I mean, why are you starting this podcast? To help people? I don't think they need you. I don't think they need you to help them when it comes to this thing. They need their local church. Like they don't, like no one needs this channel. Like I do this because it's fun for me and because I like the community that we've built. But like this is a hobby, and like it's not something I need to do. But people don't need that podcast. Shanley says, I mean, Driscoll started that church in Arizona after only, I think, a year after leaving Mars Hill. Yeah, and I bet it's money, right? Like it's money. You want to make money, and you know that like if you do something with social media, it'll work and you'll get money. But like I just go like just write a book, because I feel like books, like you can read it and you can think through it, and just because of like the nature of like taking that time and effort to think through it, you're just being a little bit more critical. And I don't know, I just get like, what are you really trying to accomplish out of this thing? Robert says the catch-22 of the abuse issue is that it falls under the rubric of church discipline, and while we want to deal with the issue of abuse, most Christians are not interested in church discipline. I think that there's some truth to that for sure. Yes, 3 years isn't that long. Carolyn says, I only became involved in online Christian culture a couple of years ago, and it's been deeply discouraging. Yeah. I want to talk about that. At the end here, because I got some things to say about that, and even some like house cleaning channel stuff to talk about that too. Britt says, hey, no comeback, calm down, then it's a season. Right? Like you caught that too. I did too. Like at the end there when he's like, I'm very content in this season. So what does that mean? Is that there is a next season, and what's in the next season, right? Like these are all steps. Like, and I think part of it is like, it's kind of like the frog and getting boiled alive, and like Christians are the frog. And Carl Lentz is just kind of slowly turning up the heat, getting people used to the idea of him doing a podcast. Then he'll probably write some books, probably do more interviews. And like, depending on who comes on his podcast and how normalized he gets, it'll go further and further, because that's the way this works. Like, again, I want to be clear. I don't think Carl Lentz is being like diabolical about this. Like, but I think that that's kind of the goal. That's kind of the goal, is to do that. Man, I need to turn that off. I keep on getting notifications. Let's see. You vote or give the nod with your attendance. What's going on with that? I don't know. Let's go, Johnny. That is the podcast for you. Different platform, same tactic. Hillsong stays Hillsong. Yep. Let's see. All right. Let's look. I'm fine with some pushback. Jason says, I feel like you are being overly suspicious and critical. However, if he starts a church within a year, I will agree with you. It feels a bit like an apology tour, but I will give him some time. So what's the cutoff, Jason? Like, all right. You might think that I'm being too critical and suspicious. That's fine. It's subjective, right? Like you can think that. But I mean, like, how long is too long, or how long is too short for him to start something? I would say ever. Like he should never be in charge of a local church ever again. He should never be on staff at a local church ever again for the things that he's done. It's not above reproach. You could go like, well, Paul was, he led people into prison, all that kind of stuff. That was before he was saved. All right. This guy has been preaching the gospel for years. And now he's saying this, but yeah, but it's fair. If you think I'm being suspicious and critical, fine. But that's what I think. Cal says, late to the party, but good afternoon, bro. Just chilling in the office, listening to Apple's keynote and how AI is advancing. So Ed Litton doesn't have to steal service for Jay Gray. Oh. Oh my goodness. I'm going to take a screenshot of this, Cal. Because that is... Have you ever been reading a celebrity pastor's blog? No, I didn't want that. Sorry about that. Apparently when I hit the things for taking a screenshot, I'm going to try a different one. Okay, that will work. Oh no, but now it's covering it. Oh man. I don't know why everything is going crazy. I just want to take a screenshot of Cal's hilarious comment. I'll do it later, Cal. But that's hilarious. RJ says, an online community is a way to pretend to be vulnerable and accountable so you can have your sin, so you can hide your sin some. Yeah. And we've learned that, right? Like we've learned that this last year. What happens online, while it's important, and I do think has like authority in people's lives to where like there are people that just absorb what someone says on a screen, doesn't double check it. Like I appreciate Jason giving a little bit of pushback on that. Like you should be like taking what I say and not just taking it as absolute truth. I'm a guy on a screen, but some Christians will just take that and they will just absorb it. They'll SpongeBob it up and just soak it all in. And it's just, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. And like with someone like this, like they need accountability. And they're not going to get it if you just give them all the clicks. All right? Like it's not also like it's not just about the followers and like what's best for them. It's also about these people. Like it's not good for some of these people to have the authority that they do because it makes them think that they're like in the clear, like they're doing everything right and that, whatever. Like it's not healthy for them. And I don't know if anyone like I really question who's in Carl Lentz's life that is telling him like this is a good idea. Like first off, you got like the stripper Jesus guy who's like whispering in his ear to like be like you should do this. So like probably shouldn't be listening to that guy about a lot of different things. And Mike Todd, same deal. So I'm not like I know the people who are whispering in his ear that it's a good thing to do, but just think about it as like a mental health thing. Like that's not a great thing to do 3 years after you've been through this, even if all of this is correct and there's no other like agendas about this. Like this is really what he's wanting to do. He wants to help people. That's not good. And I question like the wisdom of those people who are telling him it's a good thing to do. Like just mental health wise, not even as like Christian or theological, like it's just not a great idea. Heidi says, I think a strong distinction should be made between making a podcast and leading a church. Personal influence is different than spiritual influence. I don't want Carl to have a podcast, but I can't biblically object. Yeah, I'm just saying those lines are getting blurred. And maybe it's just me realizing that those lines have always been blurred. Like, because there's also radio and like who could be on the radio. But I feel like people in the past, we needed people to have a little bit more credentials before like we would listen to them. Like, and I just feel like maybe because of the idea that anyone can talk about whatever, that we just don't want that anymore. We don't care about that. And I think it leads to a lot of danger. And so I don't know, maybe I'm just old man on my lawn, just being like, get an education. But I don't know. That's just me. Daniel says, Britt, where do you find that in scripture? All the requirements of a minister are present tense requirements. I don't think you can actually find scripture that prevents restoral forever. A one woman man is not like a present tense, like currently. Like that is the idea of this is who you are. This is how you've been defined. And oftentimes when we're talking about pastoral qualifications, that's always the stickler, right? Is the issue of sexual immorality. It's kind of sad that that's usually the thing, but people, like, there's a lot of super argumentative pastors out there who are brawlers at heart and aren't being held accountable for that and get to lead churches and shouldn't be leading churches. But when it comes to the issue of sexual immorality, that's usually the one that we go like, all right, it's so black and white. Like if someone has an affair, like there's no debate. He had an affair. So like that is like the thing that usually gets talked about. And a one woman man is like a defining characteristic of who you are. That's what the Greek literally is, a one woman man. So he hasn't been that. And there's no way for him to ever say that he has always been that because of what he's done. So I think that's where it is. Matthias, folks, every time you have some doubt about cases like Carl, just think and ask yourself, if I have some serious problem in my life, should I consider this guy for counseling? Great. That's a really good way to think about it. Caleb says, I don't want to get into numbers because my wife and kids have been through enough embarrassment. And now let's start a podcast that will remind people of that controversy and embarrassment. Yep. What that is. All right. Again, like I'll always be honest on this channel. My perspective of it is that there are more people who are out there with their stories, and he doesn't want to say it's only this amount of people because someone could come in and say, well, this happened with me, and all of a sudden he's a liar again. Right? Like that would be the perception. So I think that's probably why he's not putting a number on it, because there's so many people. And I'm not saying it's like tons and tons and tons, but there's a number of people that he's scared about, people knowing. And if he is to say, like it is, let's say it's 3. All right, let's just go with a lower number because we know about a couple. But let's say it's 3, and there's like that 4th woman out there, or 4 or 5th women out there who come out and say, no, it's more than 3. All of a sudden, everything is thrown back into that, like, he's not telling the truth thing. So yeah, it's just a lot. It's a lot of personal stuff, and he's opening himself up to all of that because he's going public. He's the one who's having the podcast. All right. Well, let's see. Yeah, we'll talk about it. All right. So, I could bring it up from here. Let's just bring it up here. First off, will someone help me? I don't know. Sometimes I wonder why I'm on the internet. Mostly because I just don't understand it. Like a lot of times when people like tweet at me, or like even sometimes here in the comments section, people will say stuff and I'm just like, I don't understand what that means. And not in the like, oh, that's so dumb. It's just like, I literally don't understand. And it happens to me way more often than you would think. Some of you guys are like, no, I actually think about that. That's probably how it would be for a lot of it. So I tweeted this thing because they had a conference down in Ogden, Utah, that was apparently, it had thousands of people, which little man woke up from his nap a little early. So I got to give him, I was prepared for this. Hey, what's up, dude? You have a good nap? Okay. You take this. And let's make sure the volume is down. What? Can you let go of that? Yeah. Okay. You want to go sit over there? Daddy's got a little bit of more podcasting to do. All right. He's good. He's going to sit on the trampoline. Maybe bounce a bit. Might get noisy, but he's having fun watching something on his iPad. All right. You good? Okay. So they did that conference, and apparently thousands of people showed up, which I want to talk about here. All right. But, this is what I put. You've had plenty of time to read it, but I'm going to read it anyways. It's crazy. Rigney is fully in this world now. Imagine being among Piper and the TG fellas only to end up joining this boy band. That's what I tweeted. I stand by it. It looks like a boy band to me. A very, very conservative boy band. But Nick Dumb, he decided, and is it Doom? I'm really not trying to make a joke with that. I just literally read it. I didn't even know. I just saw like what he tweeted. Imagine being the poster child for Arrested Development and criticizing anyone for joining a boy band. Can someone help me? I watched Arrested Development. I like that TV show. I don't know what that means. And I would really appreciate it. Like, you guys are smarter than me. Caleb, anybody? You guys get this? What does being the poster child for Arrested Development mean? I mean, there are a lot of children in there. I don't know what that means. All right. But this was a conference that happened, and I just stand by it. I think it's so weird. Like this, like if we were to go back to that map, which I don't have in here, but there's just this thing that's happening. These new alliances are forming, and some of them have been there the whole time. Like Joe Rigney, it's no surprise, like that there's stuff involved with him. Like he graduated from New St. Andrews. Like they gave him some fake degree. All right. Like I don't know how this happened, but I became such a stickler for like accreditation and stuff. But New St. Andrews, they gave him a degree in something. And so he's been there in Moscow for a long time with education. Then he went back to being at Bethlehem and being the president of Bethlehem. And now he's Paedo-Baptist a year later after being the president of a Baptist seminary, which to me is still the most like insane thing ever. But like it's fine. It's fine for him to go from that so quickly. But he goes over and he's with these guys, and they're like, this is the new group. And they're forming like these weird alliances, and they're having prevalence. Like, all right, let's go over here. All right, this is from Refuge Church, which is the church of Brian Sauvé and Ed Kahn. Eric Kahn, that's what it is. But this is what they were doing at their conference. If Twitter will work. Refresh. You know, they're singing the doxology, which is a good thing. There's lots of people here. A surprising amount of people. And it just makes me go like, are there really, like, now they got kids here. They said like 1,000 people came through. I don't see 1,000 people here. Maybe that's just like whoever came through like this entire time and counting kids' heads and like all of that, trying to get to the highest number they possibly could. But it is a surprising amount. And it makes me go like, what are we doing? Like, here's my question. I always looked at these guys as having like they were just kind of like playing house with being like Big Eva, you know, like with having like the platform and everything. Do you think that they actually do have the platform? And if so, why? I just don't get it. I don't get the appeal of these guys and how they're able to build this platform and talk about mermaids and Sasquatches and you know, that mermaid is actually like a demon and there's Nephilim involved somehow. They're going to find the fountain of youth. I don't know. But it's just, what is going on? That's my biggest thing. Is like, why are Christians getting so swept up in this thing? I always thought like it's the online thing, like that they're just online, but there's a lot of people there, and it makes me go like, what? How are people falling for this? Like, and it's all the same stuff. Like it's just like they parrot the same things from each other. They're basically all the same person. It's just, why are people wrapped up in this thing? That's my biggest thing. I guess with this one, I'm just asking why. What's up with this? But also, does anyone know what this means? I don't know what this means. But it's just shocking to me. Let's go up and see if anyone could help me out here. I totally disagree with you, Daniel. I think that you have a very low bar for the qualifications of a pastor. That's sad. Let's go, Caleb. Requalification, I bet he is probably not thought well of by outsiders. right? Not non-Christians see this stuff and scratch their heads. I think you're right. If God created you to be a preacher, you would be one, and you would be able to come out and announce all of your sins so you could actually get forgiveness. Also, to better work on your weak points. Okay. Cal says, "Is New Christendom the album title for that boy band?" I think so. I don't know. What kind of music do you think that they would play? Like, probably bluegrass, right? Like, I would imagine it's bluegrass. I appreciate that, Carol. This boy band should be called the Decepticons. Ooh, that's a nice one. I think that they would probably get some infringement stuff on that. Their band name is B3 Bears, Balds, and Beards. Where's Battlestar Galactica? It means you stop maturing. Is that what it is? Poster child for Arrested Development? Is that what that means? I don't know. Your emotional development is arrested. Oh, okay. Let's see. Not that an extreme move for Rigney when you understand Piper's view of justification, which TDC apparently doesn't have a problem with. Okay. Bloodline vibes, I guess. LOL. Sounds like Grace Community Church. Music is too old for me. Okay. Caleb says there is a disheartening drift among Baptists away from Baptist principles. 100%. You know, like there are some Baptists. Joel Webbin says that he's a Baptist and a Christian nationalist, which doesn't make sense. But yeah. And Jason says just a different flavor of Big Eva. Maybe. Maybe someday. I don't know, man. Like here's the thing. I don't talk about things that people tell me, like personal things. I wait until like there's stories, but I will say I have been told a lot of things. Like people hit me up on Instagram and say things about people's church and where they're from and like what they're like behind closed doors. And I've just heard a lot from that crowd. And it's just kind of funny how people keep on finding me and being like, here's all this stuff. And I'm just like, and it usually goes into like message requests. And I'm just like, I look at it like 2 months later. I'm like, oh, like, 'cause I never check. I'm sorry. Aaron says, I think your exasperation over Lentz and these dudes is similarly placed. It's just as much frustration that someone would come to these guys and voluntarily give them influence in their own life. Yeah. But also it's just like, they're so young. That's what I keep on going toward. And maybe it's just because I'm old now, or at least I feel old, that I'm like, why are you guys listening to these people? They're younger than me. And like, I wouldn't listen to someone my age. Like, I don't know. But I'm on the internet, you know? Okay. Just a sec. I got to text back the school. H has had some high numbers today, but it looks like he's in the clear. Okay. Let's see. Their gospel is more like Jesus is super strong and will destroy his enemies instead of Jesus died for his enemies. I've noticed that with their singing stuff. I don't know. Like I hear about like muscular men, masculine Christianity, and like that's like their brand. But it's just like I don't really buy it. These guys hunt, but is that masculine? I don't know. But also like they hate the like gentle and lowly part of Jesus, and they care about those things way more. Coming in late, what are we chatting about? Well, we've chatted about a lot of things now, but we are going to be chatting about a change to the channel now. All right, let's get into it. As you can tell, I'm getting frustrated. I'm getting frustrated with these stories and things. And like, I'm not alone. Like, Coraline left this, Caroline said this earlier. I only become involved in online Christian culture a couple of years ago, and it's been deeply discouraging. I agree. It's been deeply discouraging. And, I started this channel with the thought of getting my thoughts out there and just talking about things that, not deep theology, but just like that are Christian in nature, but still like things that we're all talking about. And I wanted to give my thoughts on them. And the last couple months, it's just been the same stories keep on happening. And just people getting so worked up online that it's just frustrating. Like, I see it on both sides. Like, I see, conservative people, getting mad about everything that's supposedly liberal. And I see like even liberal people getting real mean. Like, even this last week, guys, like, again, when I posted this, where did that go? When I posted this just the other day, like, I think it was literally yesterday. And some of the people that like took it and ran with it, like, it was just like, I don't want to be connected to this. Like, some of the things that people were saying. But I stand by, like, calling them a boy band is one thing. We could joke about the names about these guys. But there were some people who were just like, these guys will end up in prison for things done to children. Like, what? Why would you say that? And then like, even like calling them all kinds of names and stuff. And then I get like weirdo comments. I got one comment yesterday. I sent it to my buddies, but it's just like, I've never been called this in my life. I get called a lot of names, never been called this one. And it's just, I don't know. I don't like where Christians are at online. And it is becoming more and more of like a struggle to do this podcast, to put my thoughts out there, to go against the grain. And it's not like, I'm not like whining about it, because I know, like, I give my opinions, and my opinions are not like, they're not the same opinions that everybody has. That's why you listen to me most likely, is because I'm saying things that people aren't generally saying. And like, that's how you gain a platform in any way, is you got to provide something unique. And my unique thing is my perspective. So I understand that, because it's unique, that not everyone's going to agree with it, right? Like, that's what makes it unique. So there are going to be people who would disagree strongly and say things. So it's not just that, but it's just, I don't know. I'm getting real tired of just like the rhetoric online. And, there's a part of me that's thinking, like, am I adding to that? Like, am I adding to like the excessive, over the top reactions to things? I don't think I am. But I think for my own sanity, I have to make some changes with the channel. Which I see Caleb. Merch? Well, that's also part of it. Like, some of you guys get real, like, you should have merch. You should have Patreon. And not to beat a dead horse, I've talked about this plenty of times, but I just feel really weird about monetizing abuse. I just do. And like, I like the idea of when I have critics who are like, you're just doing it for clicks, to be able to be like, I don't make money off of this. It's not about the clicks for me. It's about trying to help people and give the perspective, letting people know, like what I say in that intro is like, you're not alone. Like, I want to say that, like, you're not crazy for thinking that all this is really weird and that Christians are being odd about this thing, whatever we're talking about that week. And like, I like that I can come back to those people and say, I'm not making money off of this thing. But, I've learned a lot about how to run a YouTube channel and how to build community. I'm not saying I'm an expert, but I want to take those abilities and put it into something that I can monetize, and put it into something that can be a betterment for my family. And I will have a clear conscience about it. And like, I will make merch for this at some point. Some of you guys are like, where is he going with this? Let me just say it. All right. we're going to go to once a month for the podcast, and we're going to try to make it. I'm going to try, at least for the first couple months, to try to make it like a big deal, like a bigger stream. Try to do some of the things of letter from the culture war every time, like trying to add some new things and make it like more of like a real big event thing. And I want to see if that helps me to be able to make the content. And again, I'm so thankful for this community and for the people who decide to spend their Mondays hanging out with me and talking about these things. And I don't want that community to go away. And I know I have a responsibility to cultivate that community and give you guys opportunities to do things. So part of it is I'll still be doing streams, and I'll still give my opinions when every week, sometimes I feel like I have to really go searching for it. Like Jeremy said this on our little stream that we did about the, Daddy Daddies. That's what we call ourselves, I guess. I didn't pick the name, but it stuck. And I made graphics for it. So I don't know. But so we were hanging out, and he was talking about doing it every week and trying to find things. And you get kind of a cynical, it can create a cynical process. So just looking for things that are wrong rather than reacting to things that are wrong. And, I don't think I do that. I don't think that's been a problem for me, but I could see how it could be. And I could see myself being where are the things to talk about, rather than being this is the thing that everyone's talking about. Let's talk about that thing. And I feel like doing it once a month would probably create that a little bit better and be an easier way to let's recap, rather than just immediate reaction to something that happened yesterday or this weekend. Let's recap what's happened this month, and here's the stories. And I could do a little bit more research and grind into it. And I could still have the ability to work on the movie channel. Because again, guys, I don't want to be that guy that tells his main YouTube audience that something else is more important to him. That's not what I'm saying, but it is something that fills me up. It makes me happy to make that content, and I want to be able to use the skills that I've learned here talking about these things with you in order to build up that channel, or at least try. Again, it's all a crapshoot, right? It's like YouTube. You never know. This could have been going for 3 years, and there could have been 12 people. The fact that there are 68 people watching right now me ramble about, whining about YouTube stuff is kind of shocking. But it could very well could have been 12 people, because that's just the way YouTube works. YouTube doesn't it doesn't always make sense, right? Of how many people are watching, and you could do all the right things and still get a bad result. So I'm not saying I'm going to grow that channel to be a huge thing, but I want to try. And I want to give it a real effort and put more work into it. And I know people would be you don't even put work onto this channel. You just turn on the cameras. It takes a lot of work to do a podcast every Monday for 3 years, or at least, taking little breaks here and there. But I've done 130 of these things, So I want to go once a month and make it a big deal, and, try to keep still doing streams throughout the week of different things. Most of them will be chill streams and AMAs and things like that, to just have the ability to hang out with you guys, because a lot of you guys are my friends, and I feel we have not just you guys are here for my thoughts on the Monday podcast, and then you go away and you never come back. When I stream, you guys hang out, and I want to do just streams like that, and then once a month get into it and do an underdog theology. And I want to see if that helps, if that alleviates some of the stress that I feel over it, and a little bit of the frustration that I have with Christian YouTube and what I'm seeing online. So that's what I'm going to be doing. So we won't be having underdog theology next week. We will go once a month, and I'm scared about that. Guys, I realize what an awesome thing having, typically lately, or at least when I've been doing the podcast, getting 100 people hanging out, 80 to 100 people watching streams. That doesn't just happen. It's been a lot of work. of doing this thing. And I know this move to doing it once a month, it's kind of risky, and I feel like I'm shooting myself in the foot a little bit. But I want to see if it works for my own sanity, for me being able to do this long term. And so that's what we're going to be doing. You saw an ant? Oh man, we got to deal with some ants. Some ants are in the house apparently. But that's what we're going to do. So I'm sorry if it's disappointing. I know like you just came off a month break, but like last week, probably doing like the Trump thing was a bad decision, you know, like just going right into that. That's my own fault. But I don't know. I just don't like the reaction that I see, online about a lot of things. And I don't want to add to that chaos. And I want to be a little bit more thoughtful about what I do. And again, I'm like, I know some of you guys are like, oh, he's seeing the problem that I've seen the whole time or whatever, to anyone who doesn't like what I've said. That's not what I'm saying. I stand by everything I have made up to this point. Stand by all of it. You know, there have been a couple streams that I've taken down because I don't stand by those things. I was like, I probably should have thought through that thing a little bit more. Like that has happened. So anything that is live on my YouTube channel is because I agree with myself, which I know is so shocking. But that's what I'm doing. So I hope you're okay with that. I hope I didn't just ruin any progress that I've made on this channel. I've spent a lot of time and effort on this channel. I hope you guys know that and know that I'm thankful for it. I'm thankful for anyone who gives me a chance when they're like wanting something to watch. And even if you're just like, this guy's crazy, but I kind of like him. And like, so you watch, you know, every once in a while, like I'm thankful for that too. But some of you guys have been here for a long time and have been just so faithful. It sounds like way too Christianese of a phrase for this part, but it's just been so faithful in showing me support. And I want you to know you're not the reason, or like you're like, I didn't get enough support. And so now I'm like bogged down by the negativity. It's just, I don't know. It feels cyclical as well. Like everything that I've been making lately, it's not rejuvenating me. It feels like I'm just saying the same things over and over again. And I want to see if going toward like just like an event style of like underdog theology, and it will be at a night. It won't be during the day, and it will be scheduled so everyone can know that it's happening. But you know, I go toward like it's this night, underdog theology is happening, and then you know we can hang out, and we could have fun, and we can make it a bigger deal, and we could have lots of like Q&A, because that's also part of it. Like even though you could tell I'm kind of nervous about this and I don't like talking about this stuff that much, it's also just like way more fun to be able to like look at the chat and really interact rather than be like, I have to put out the content. Here's this segment, move to this segment. And like, that's just not as fun for me. So if we go to like a big old stream and we talk about a few of the things and we take tons of breaks for like hanging out with the chat, and even like, again, I am fully aware that this is not going to grow the channel, but at this point I am good with that. I have learned that when my channel grows by a bunch, it's not good for me, because there are tons of people who are just subbing because John MacArthur is in the title, or because like they don't like John MacArthur and they let me know every single time. And like they hate John MacArthur. It's not even that they don't like what he says. They just hate him as a person. And like, I think that there's something wrong about that. Like, you shouldn't hate these people. Now, I've also seen that. Like, I've seen more negativity in the comment section, not just of people mad about me. I'm used to that. Like, people being mad at me for what I do. But I'm not used to people in this community being mad at all these people and saying some of the things that have been said. I've deleted some comments. And I'm not here to like shame anybody who, if you're like, that's me, it's probably not you. But it's just like, but it might be, it might be. But I'm just saying, like, I think we need to be really kind about how we deal with these things. And like, it's one thing if you guys are like, well, you know, you seem kind of mean sometimes. Like, I want to work on that. I don't feel like I have been, but I want to work on that too. I'm not a perfect person. And I'm not making any apologies though. Like I stand by everything I've done, but I'm just letting you know that's where I'm at. That's what's happening with the channel. That's where we're going. And it's not, I'm taking all the formality out of it. I knew that if this podcast were to become like a bigger channel, it needed the segments and it needed like, here's the content. And some of you guys love that. That's the way you'd prefer it. You love everything polished. I hate it. I really do. And so like, I would much rather just ramble and talk and hang out. And again, I'm not bound to growing this channel. Like I want to grow because I want the people who feel like there are people out there that feel just like maybe you did, or, you know, at least in my head, my target audience is the people that feel like they're on the outskirts and they don't have people in their real life who are talking about these things in this way. And I want to reach them. So I want to find those people. But do you know how many of those people are out there? So few. There are so few of them. So when Christian, or when YouTube pushes it out to Christians, because I'm talking about Christian things, there's 1 out of 300 who I'm looking for, you know, like who are those, that exact target audience. And so I think doing it this way would probably be better for reaching that target audience and growing this channel in the way that I want it to grow. So this channel isn't over. This isn't like a last ditch thing. You know, there was a part of me that even this weekend, I was like, maybe I just stop. Maybe I just stop for a while and take it up again. But I don't want to be one of those creators who just gives up because they don't know what's going on or don't know how they feel about what they're doing. And then like a year later, they're like, I'm starting the channel again. And everyone's just like, why should I watch? You gave up last time. Why won't you give up again? I don't want to do that. So I want to do this and see if it works. So for me, and yeah, that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. I'm sorry. So sorry. Okay. Let's see if anyone is mad at me. Wouldn't this be a great way to do a podcast? Okay. Carol says, when I went to Grace, I could not understand what they say. It's over my head. I feel like probably that's a lot of people at church. Like not everyone in the congregation went to seminary. Caleb says, we need to just out conference everyone and start getting together. I would love anyone, again, I will say it, anyone driving through Moose Jaw. If you're going on the number 1 here in Canada and you're going through Saskatchewan, you let me know. I will drive somewhere and we will hang out. I'll buy you some Timmies. I'll probably be bringing 1 to 3 kids with me, but we'll hang out. Pam says, as it gives a sense of, what was that? There was another part. Okay. One aspect of what's happening, in my opinion, is this thing called pride. Pride in being the most conservative, feeling better than other churches and believers, and needing to rally behind that as it gives a sense of belonging and superiority. I have been pretty closely adjacent to these groups in my church and family, and I've seen it up close. I think you're right. Carolyn. Is it Carol Ann or Carolyn? All right. Let me know by adding a Y if it's supposed to be Carolyn and like that's how I'm supposed to say it. Or is it Carol Ann? I'm culturally homeless. I don't fit in on the left or right. Right there with you. Right there with you. And Carol says Christians can be bullies. I listen to you because you are spiritual. I appreciate that. I try. I heard once, apparently you don't have a political home if you don't believe the weak should abuse the strong or the strong the weak. What? Is that a thing? I don't think I agree with that. Let's see. Let's go down a little bit. Wendy says, is my ball cap in the works? I turn 70 next month. Where is my hat? That's what I want to know. Well, you know what? That didn't work, did it?
Him.
Okay.
Go grab your hammer and you go fly and you talk to him.
It's one of my favorites. I don't know. I don't know why, but just the way Hawkeye says that thing. I don't want it to go away either. It will be a big hole. It's not going away, but it will get sparse, and I'm sorry, but that's just the way we're going to do it. I reported one of the comments on that post as it was just unbelievable and horrible. There's no longer room for intelligent discussion. It has devolved into mudslinging, fighting, and I get it. You probably saw that comment then, because there was really just one that was just like nasty and weird, like just odd. Like, why would you call anyone that? But I'm not that race, so I don't even know what that was about, but it was so weird. Start a subreddit to keep in touch in the meantime. I would be fine with that. Like, I've never used Reddit. Like, I've never. I know that there are Marvel spoilers on Reddit, but that's about it. So I would let me know in the chat, or if you're watching on the rewatch, let me know in the comments if you are on Reddit, which I know probably everyone in life is. It's just not me, but I wouldn't be opposed to that. But I have started a Twitter list. It is pinned on Twitter, on the Underdog Theology Twitter. You can search Underdog Theology on Twitter. You'll find that. The first tweet on the profile is the pinned comment of the list. And if you'd like to be added to that list, then just let me know by leaving a comment on that thing, and I'll add you to the list. And you'll find some of the people who are here in the chat, some of the people who watch this channel are there. So you can stay in touch that way as well. But I wouldn't be opposed to starting that. Be like the Berean, study everyone. The pastor says, if they are wrong, question them and discuss it. Sure. We could have a Zoom. I've never used Zoom. I've used Zoom for church when everything first happened. But I don't know. This seems like it'd be really tricky. We totally get it, Dean. It's heavy stuff, sometimes, and exhausting. I appreciate that you don't want to monetize talking about some of this, but I think you deserve some monetization at the same time. I get that. Like that, you guys always tell me that when I get into this kind of stuff. You're just like, you're doing other things. It's not just that issue. I just don't know. I don't know. I just get nervous about that, of people viewing it that way. And I don't want to make decisions just about how people are viewing it, but also it's just I don't know if I would be good with myself. Cause we talk about that almost every week. It's church hurt or abuse. And it feels weird to make money off of that. I don't know. I just don't like it. I feel like that would be wrong. So that's where I'm at. Again, I always say, it is my opinion. And if I change my opinion, I'm inclined to do that. I could do that. Dean, if you left for real, the internet would become a much darker place. Yeah, I'm not going anywhere. This channel will continue. I just want to make sure that when I'm doing a stream, it's not because I have to do a stream. That's basically it. Is I want to do a stream when I feel like I need to do a stream. Which sounds the same, but I think you get what I'm trying to say. If there's something like the John MacArthur stuff, I feel like I needed to talk about those things in that way, because people, even the people who were acting like they were talking about those things, they didn't know. So I feel like I had expertise in that, and that I should be talking about that specific thing. And I feel like the internet needed my voice in that, and that might be prideful, but I think that that's needed a voice like that at least. But I don't want to just do a stream because it's Monday and I have to find something to talk about, but yeah. I appreciate that, Carol. I appreciate Caleb. I'm going to save this and send it to my wife. Say, see, there are people who think I'm funny. Yeah. And Wendy, you've been here forever. Lots of you guys have, and you're just a huge pillar of this community. So I appreciate it. Pam said, if we lived closer, we would totally be having your family over for a barbecue. I'm saying next time you go to Winnipeg, which why would you go to Winnipeg? I'm just saying, Winnipeg sucks. All right. If you live in Winnipeg, I'm sorry, but the four of you who live there, just that city sucks. But if you're on your way to Winnipeg, Pam, let me know and we'll hang out. RJ says, I'll be here. I appreciate that. I wonder if Joe Thorne felt the same way and that's why he left. Yeah. Joe's a friend, and If he wants to be online, he'll be online. And if he doesn't want to be online, he's going to stay in his hole. So, but I really love him, and I hope that there's more podcasts in the future. Hannah said, just found your channel and I appreciate it. I know I will continue to watch it when it goes monthly. Thank you, Hannah. I appreciate that. And I'm really glad that you found the channel. That, you know what that deserves. Welcome to the fam. And Caleb says, I totally feel that way with my own content. It's so easy to just roast someone instead of dealing with the actual ideas. Yeah, it is. It really is. And like, here's the deal. I want to have fun. And part of having fun is not being like a stickler of we always just talk about the argument. We can't talk about the person. Well, it's the person making the argument. So like, there should be something there and you can have a little bit of fun. You can talk about, the patriarchy boys and the boy band stuff. Like I think that's fair game. But when it's just like how they look, and again, like there were several people like that were just like, those guys look like child. And it's just like, what? No, thank you. Or I'll say this too. They're not all the same. Like, I know that there are so many people that are just like, well, Joe Rigney, he went there and then he was also with John Piper. So they're essentially the same. No, they're not. You can't say that John Piper and the people in Moscow are the exact same. That's not how it works. Like, you got to deal with people saying things. And I want to make sure that I never do that. I want to be giving people the benefit of the doubt, and not just because they're associated with someone that's like what they do. Now, associations matter. I'm a Baptist. I believe that associations matter, but not to where you're just like, they're all the same. TGC, they're all the same as those guys. I mean, there's similarities, but these are individuals and we need to deal with them as individuals while we can, connect some of the dots when it comes to like not Joe. Did I say Joe Thorne earlier? I meant Joe Rigney, but like Joe Rigney going to Moscow and being educated there and then taking over, you can connect those dots, but you got to deal with people as people. And I feel like there are some people who would just love me to like roast everybody as if they're the same. And I just don't want to do that. I want to be careful. But that's it. I started the booing when you last talked about some of this, but it makes sense. We'll be here for it. I appreciate that. And again, like, it's not like it's gone. We'll go once a month. This isn't a goodbye. I'll miss the stream, but I understand. And no, you won't. It just will be sporadic. But I'll try to announce it. I want to get better about that. When I do streams, I want to be able to announce it and like have it on the books so people can plan around that. Not that you should be like canceling a date, like canceling a date with your spouse to like come and hang out with me on a stream, but like just so that you know. And you're just like, oh, well, maybe I won't go and get groceries right now. I'll get groceries before or after, stuff like that. Will you give us a heads up for chill streams? It's harder with the chill streams. I want to get better about it, but it probably won't be like 4 days in advance because I have a kid with diabetes and it always, like even today, guys, like he was high. And like, I just got back from giving him his insulin at school when I started this episode. So it's just like, I'm always watching that. Cause again, him being autistic, he can't express when he's feeling like that he's high or low. So I always got to be watching that. So it's like, and then like, got to make sure like either Heather's home or that, like everything's good and in the clear. So it's hard to just be like, this is the definite time, but I will try to give people ballparks of like when we're going to be doing even the chill streams. What about every 2 weeks? So stories aren't cold few weeks out. Just a thought. It is a thought. But I think we'll go with a month. And so it can be kind of a roundup and, again, guys, like I get it of like, this isn't going to help the channel grow. It's not going to be like the thing that's going to get pushed in the algorithm. I don't know. YouTube might get mad at me and penalize me for not streaming more. So hit the notification bell. But this, like the way I'm starting to view this channel is I want to continue building the community, not growing the channel. That's the way that I want to think about this channel. It's not about channel growth. It's about community building. And so you guys will know. And whether that's not enough streams for you, okay. But it's the once a month thing will like, you won't, I don't think that you guys will care too much if it's cold, you know? Plus my takes are so hot. Warm up the place. That was so dumb. Why did I say that? All right. I'm not on Reddit or Twitter. I'm further behind. That's okay. Some days I'm like, why am I on Twitter? So I don't know, man. Like I'm really getting to that place where I kind of want to just go out in the woods with a TV and a Blu-ray player and just watch movies. And then I can make those videos about those movies. And that's all of my involvement with the internet would be just uploading and the comment section. That's and like if I was streaming the chat, but too many conflate ribbing and mocking. I completely agree and take it really hard. Let's say that. Dean, my daughter Katie and Aria would love it if you said hi to them on the stream. Katie, Aria, hi. What's up? How are you guys doing? Have you guys been doing any impressions of me lately? Like that made me so happy when your mom told me that. I was like, that is the craziest thing. It's very flattering. What sound effect do you guys want me to play? Do you guys like my sound effects? My kids always like it when because I got the buttons. You see these buttons? And they like pushing the buttons and having fun with the sound effects. So you let me know. Take a look. You let me know which sound effect you want me to push, and I will push that button. 50 people still watching. Let's see. Brandon, I just found your channel. I appreciate your content. You come off as level-headed, objective, and charitable. Thank you. I'm going to put this comment on a plaque, and I'm going to send it to all of my haters. No, I'm not going to do that because the shipping would be just crazy expensive. But I really appreciate that, Brandon. And because you just found the channel, I wonder, is there anyone here that doesn't know what that is? Doesn't know what that's from? And they're just like, what is he? Keep on doing the yes thing. Let's see. Totally, we could talk about something that is a month old, right? I kind of feel like that. And I'm at the point where I'm realizing I'm so alone. My thoughts about things are so different from other YouTube channels. You're not going to get the same take from me like you're going to get from other people. So if you come to this channel for my take, it's probably still going to be plenty spicy a month later, even if it's a full month, which also, if there's a huge thing, I'll be streaming about that. I will do streams like that. I'm just saying, I don't want to be pressed into the corner of just have to do a show every Monday and get all the stuff together every single Monday and, find something to talk about. That's kind of what I'm getting at. Caleb says, Dean, I literally started my own YouTube channel because of you. You kept bringing up how Christian YouTube was so bad and that people who could do it needed to start. So I was like, okay, fine. You guys need to look up Caleb's channel. I watched one of your videos, Caleb. I don't know. Did I sub? I need to sub. I'm going to go sub to Caleb's channel. Let me go. Caleb. I don't know how to say your name, but YouTube does. YouTube suggested it. Let's go to Caleb's channel, and let's go here. This is Caleb's channel, and he's got some cool videos. I must have watched it on my movie thing because I watched some of these videos. It's not saying I did, but I promise I did. Subscribed. Dude, congrats. You're about to hit 100 subscribers. Someone subscribe quick and Caleb will get to 100 subs. That's cool, man. That's very flattering that I helped you do that. Like to get started on making a channel. That's cool. And I agree. Like we need more. Guys, if you're like, Dean's not going to be doing it every week, start your own channel. You guys are smart. A lot of you guys who hop into the chat, I'm saying, I would kill for a podcast from Pam and Heidi. All right? Sheologians would just be so scared if you guys started a podcast. You guys could do stuff. Start a podcast. Get involved in more communities that are doing this stuff. Go sub to Caleb's channel. Like, this is cool stuff. You're very down to earth. I appreciate that. Matthew says, I'm barely on Twitter now, getting a bunch of death threats from Christian nationalists for being a Mennonite. Kind of set the tone for quite a while. Too many racists and fascists whenever I check in. It's getting worse all the time. All right, I'll say it. I got called the N-word the other day on Twitter. Like, what the heck is that about? One, I'm white. But also just like, what the heck? And they were like, you're 400 pounds. Like, no, I'm not. Like, what the heck? I guess I need to work on my my camera angles. But let's see. I want to hear the yellow sun button. Yellow sun button? That's just my settings. Sorry, it just goes here because I haven't set it up. Usually this has like all like the segments that I do. It's not a sound effect. But I could play this one. You guys like Star Wars, right?
Good.
What other ones would you know? You know what? I'll go through here. This is probably my favorite. This is just for the Goings kids.
I feel like an angel baby swaddled in a cocoon of cloud candy.
I love that one. That's from Psych. See, Daniel Bryan, yes, chance. All right, somebody gets it. Also, they were bouncing all over when you talked to them. Thanks, Dane. You're welcome. I hope they don't destroy anything. But, this is so cool. It's so cool. Your kids sound awesome. Also, they're probably great theologians now, right? Like, come on. Hannah says, Daniel Bryan, I used to watch WWE with my cousin. I wish my kids were still into it because I was watching a lot of WWE and I loved it. And then they stopped watching it. And so it's just like I stopped watching it because they weren't watching it as much. And I'm going to watch it. I don't care what Heather says. Heather will make fun of me for watching soap operas, but it's not soap opera because they jumped off the top rope and that's athletic. It's athletics. Bro, I'm crying. Stop. Thank you so much, man. Crying? Why should anyone cry when you have this awesome of a channel? Oh, let's refresh. Has anyone subbed? Do I have any power? Yeah! Look at that, sugar! 103 subs. That's rad. Congrats, man. I know the struggle. Every milestone. This is my one advice I will give you because I don't know what I'm doing. So I don't really have too much advice to give people. But my one piece of advice is to celebrate every single milestone because no one else will do that for you, bro. And you gotta be your own hype man when it comes to making content online. Like, because it's hard and you feel like giving up so often. So just be like, dang. And always think about it this way. What if those 100 people would be hanging out with you? Like if like all those people who value your opinion so much that they click the button, they went out of their way to click the button. What if they showed up at your house to listen to you talk about something? Like how crazy would that be? So you might be like, oh, I only have 100 subs, but that's nuts when you think about it. Like that there are 100 people who are willing to listen to you talk about whatever, you know, whatever your field is. And that's always what I convince myself. Like I think about like even right now, there are 50 people who are still watching. We're not talking about Carl Lentz anymore. We're done talking about the Ogden boys. We're just rambling about YouTube and hanging out. And there are still 51 people who are hanging out with us. Like imagine if we were all together in a room. How cool would that be? So it might not be, you know, some huge number like, I don't know, if Ruslan's doing a stream and there's like 1,000 people watching, which don't send me anymore. Oh, almost spilled that tea. All right. But like, if there's like 1,000 people watching a streamer like that, like that's nuts. And you might be like, oh, there's only like 50 people watching this, but that's still nuts. 50 people watching you talk about whatever. Like that's nuts. So cool. So congrats and on the 100 subs, and I hope that you get many more, and I'll be watching. And that sounded more threatening than I wanted. I'll be watching. Psych is still one of the greatest shows ever. Yeah, man. I love that show. We're rewatching it for probably like the 12th time. It's been a long time since I rewatched it. Like, cause I watched it like it was on when I was in high school, and me and my best friend, I mean, like I made up mock pictures of me and him as Gus and Sean, because like that's our relationship. I'm Gus, he's Sean. And so like I love that show. I feel like it's very close to my personal friendship with my buddy Joel. And so it's just like very personal. So we watched it like so much, own all the seasons, like on DVD, not just on streaming. I have like a Psych mug. I still have that, but my Psych cookie jar of a pineapple with Psych, I used to have it in the set. It broke when we moved, so that was really sad. But love that show. Let's see. You're Superman. I am Superman. I subbed. Great job, Caleb. Sweet. Go and sub. All right. We will be hanging out when we get to heaven. That's true. Some of y'all, you need to come and give me a big old hug. Like, people don't think about this about me. I'm a hugger, okay? Like, I feel weird in the circles. Like, I grew up being a hugger. Let me know if any of you fundies feel this way, okay? I grew up being a hugger, and then I went to fundy Bible school, Bible college, and it was like a no-no to give hugs. Like, most of my friends growing up were girls, and so like we hug all the time, nothing about it. And then I went to Fundy Baptist Bible College, where they're like, you can't hug a girl. And now it made it weird for a couple of years, and then doing ministry in that circle made it even weirder. And like now I'm just getting back into that. I don't care. Like, that stuff's not even part of my thought processes. I'm not going to be weird. I'm just going to hug people. So if I see you in heaven, I'm giving you a hug. Johnny says, Dean, you really contributed for my personal well-being. I finally have found Christians online space that think nuanced and is okay with me having a different take on things. Sweet! That's what I want. It's what I want. It's the whole point. Why am I so aggressive?
Boy, that escalated quickly. That really got out of hand fast.
Man. All right, last one, Matthew. I love that Psych holds up to rewatching, and the follow-up movies have been fun. I haven't really liked the movies, to be honest. I was pretty disappointed. I liked the musical. The musical was pretty fun, but the actual movies, especially this last one, was kind of. But it is great for rewatching. It's just on the 12th time you kind of go like right away. So it's been like probably like 5 years since our last rewatch, and I feel like it's a lot fresher. The jokes are landing a little bit better, even though I know them. You know, just that. That's Anchorman Carol. That was Will Ferrell, but no one still knows what this one is. Maybe especially since it's not playing for some reason. Where is it? I've asked people, do you know what this one is, for a long time, and no one ever knows. This one.
No, that's no good.
That's one of my favorites. Ooh, the hat's on backwards now. That's how you know I'm chilling. Joe Thorne actually gave me a hard time about that one time. He's just like, why do you always wear your hat backwards? What's with that? And it's like, that's me chilling. If I'm just hanging out, this is how my hat is. This is when I feel like I need to be like looking a certain way. But if I'm just like chilling, it's this. As I hit my nose on the microphone because I'm an Italian and we have big noses. All right. It's okay. I'm Italian, so I can say that. You can't, but I can. Someone sent me a thing about garlic the other day, and like how Dean uses garlic. And I was just like, I'm Italian, and you don't need to be sending me that. So, anyways, I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna go pick up my kids. But the channel will continue. The channel will be here. We'll do streams periodically. The podcast itself, though, will be longer, be bigger, but it will be on a monthly basis, and we'll see how that goes. We'll give it through the summer and see. I might get tired of that. I might want to share my thoughts more. I might go back to a weekly thing. But my main point is that this is like a test, and it will be continuing. Like, it will continue, so don't be scared about that. But and we'll do different streams, and I'll be doing chill streams. And if something crazy happens, something like, I'll probably do a stream at the end of the week talking about what happened in the SBC, like at the meeting. And if something happens, I'll talk about that. Like, I want to do those things. I just want to have the time to be able to think through it and have the passion to do it. That's part of it too. Like, because I feel like it's much easier to fall into like just roasting people if you're not passionate about the thing that you're talking about. So I want to make sure I'm passionate about that thing. And also movies. I'll say it. Like, I know people are probably like, he just wants to focus on his movie channel. Kind of do, because I like movies and it's fun and it fills me up, makes me feel good. I don't care if anyone watches. I do care. I care a lot, actually. I want people to watch it, but that's just the way it is. What's up, Church Dropout? You just sent me a message. I will get to you probably after I go pick up my kids. But also, while I'm shouting out channels like Caleb, I know 54 people are still like, he never just says goodbye. It's going to be 5 minutes of him saying goodbye. But while I'm shouting out channels, let me do this. I forgot to bring up Church Dropout when I was ranking YouTube channels. He would have gone in the rad category. This is a channel. It's doing a lot of the same stuff I'm doing. A lot of like the same kind of reactions, different perspective from a way cooler guy. He's just way cooler. So go check out Church of Dropout. Great YouTube channel. Doing a lot of like the same kind of stuff. So check that out. And there's one more that you guys should really check out. And it's a great channel. If you guys care about theology, you guys should not be checking out this channel. But if you like movies, maybe check out this channel. All right, I'm done. I will be back at some point in the near future. Not going away forever. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, bye guys. Hope you have a great rest of your Monday and you're not super mad at me. And I promise I won't just give up on the channel and never come back. Bye.